What's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. So as you can see, we got everything painted. The fenders are just sitting on there. The doors probably could use just a tad bit of adjustment, but they are mounted on the car now. It's time to get this stuff wet sanded. So I think with today's episode, we're going to be going over some tips and techniques on how I wet sand. Definitely am not the best wet sander and polisher out there, but I can make it look pretty shiny. So I'll go over what I do and how I do it. So I think first off, we're going to get the fender bolted on so it's not rattling, while we're wet sanding. And we'll start sanding some freaking clear coat. Yeah, buddy. Let's do it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Okay, guys, so I got a bucket of warm water here. I like to use warm water so my hand doesn't get cold. I'm soft and sensitive. Okay, so I'm going to start off with an 800 grit wet dry sandpaper. Get it good and wet, and I am going to start by working in small circles. And I want to make sure I stay away from this edge right here, or this edge up here, or this edge down here, or even this rolled edge right here. Because this 800 grit takes the clear coat off incredibly fast, so it works really good for knocking down the orange peel. But that means that it burns through very fast, and we don't want to paint these doors again. We've already painted them and dealt with trying to paint these things a handful of times. So we're just going to keep working this out, the whole door over with 800 grit, staying away from those lips and ledges. And once we work this for a little bit, I'll cut back and show you what the finish looks like. And we want to be careful too on this area too, because there is a little bit of a hard radius right here. So when I'm sanding on this, I'm actually, it's rolling over this hard edge, so it's taking a lot more material down on any of these edges. So I want to make sure I'm mindful of all of those areas. Keep the sandpaper nice and wet. You need that lubricativity there. I think that's a word. And we'll just work this area out here with the 800. We'll get it dried off and take a look at it. Okay, so cut back. I've got this dried off now. I just use where's it at here? One of these water squeegee things. I don't know, I've had this thing forever, and I don't use it to dry my car off anymore, but I use it to clean off the surfaces I wet sand. So you can probably see right here, there's some shiny spots still, little pits and pinholes. Yeah, coming right across there. Otherwise, everything else is pretty nice and dull. That's going to be your orange peel right there that still needs to be cut down. Again, right here, you can see some low spots that need to be worked out a little bit. That right there is like a little speck of dust or something that was in the clear coat. That should wet sand just fine. So we're going to go back over these areas. This area here in the middle looks to be pretty good with the 800. Just these areas down here, and then a little bit up here, and then we'll move on down the door, and we'll just keep working our way down the door, get this bottom area worked. I don't spend as much time down here because it's not as visible on the car. This area that you can really see with your eyes is really where I like to focus most of my energy, and into this area a little bit here. So I'm going to go back to hitting this with 800 grit and just tighten these areas up a little bit. I see you. He tried to get sneaky. He didn't get very sneaky. Anyways, so I started wet sanding this with 800, and you can see it a little bit better on the fender here. You can see that shiny spot. So that's just the orange peel that hasn't been flattened out yet. Not so sneaky. Alright guys, so I've got this all wet sanded with 800 grit now. It's pretty good. There's a couple little spots right there, but all in all it's pretty flat now. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to 1500 grit, and we will wet sand all this with 1500 grit. Not that exciting, just me moving my arm again, so I won't bore you with time lapse. We're going to do the exact same thing with the 1500 grit that we did with the 800 grit. We're going to work over the whole car. and then we'll switch over to 25 or 2000 or whatever I have, I'm not sure, and then it's ready to polish. So let's get some 1500 grit rubbing and let's get it done. Alright guys, so it's been about 15 minutes here. I got the fender and the door sanded out with the 1500 grit. Those couple little areas up here are pretty much gone now, so that's good. I was able to find some 2500 grit. I thought it was all out of 2000 or 25 or whatever. I scrummaged through the drawers in the top of the toolbox and found 2 more sheets of 2500. So I'm going to go ahead and get this wet sanded with 2500. And I might break out the polisher. I'm not 100% sure. I might roll over to the other side and start hitting that with 800 grit. We'll see. Polishing is more fun because you get to see it look shiny again, which is always a plus. But yeah, the Chevelle's in here. I'd have to put the car cover on. Seems like a lot of work, so we'll see. Let's get this thing sanded out with 2500. The spot right there. I've been staying away from these edges pretty hard so that I don't burn through any of them. And you can see just a little bit of orange peel right along that edge there. So with that 2500, I'm going to go ahead and get this just be a little more aggressive on those edges. Chances of burning through on 2500 are still good, but a lot less than sanding with 800 grit or 1500 grit. So the higher the number, the lower the grit, the less it takes off, or the more effort it takes to take the same amount off. So that'll be good right there, just to clean that up with the 2500. So let's get to it. Okay, so we are going to start buffing out and polishing this driver's side here. So this has been wet sanded with 800 grit, 1500 grit, and 2500 grit. And we're going to start with our fast cutting foam. I got these bad boys from Harbor Freight. They work actually really amazingly. And using our TransStar cutting compound. So when we're doing this, we want to go ahead, the buffer is going to be going in a circular direction like this. We want to make sure we're putting our pressure on the side that is going off of the edges or going off the body panels. We don't want to be having it come onto the body panel with the pressure because it'll eat all the paint off right on this edge. We want to be lifting off of it. In some of these areas in here where you're coming off of it but then you're going to come on this way, you got to be careful and you got to make sure you work that in a way so that your buffer wheel is not grabbing these corners. So light pressure and just slow work these angles nice and easy just to get this stuff polished, because we do not want to paint any more body parts again like we did on the deck lid. So let's go ahead and get this set up and get this polished because I want to see it shiny again. Alright, so for this I'm going to start out with the buffer, probably about 1000 RPM. Make sure we shake up our sauce here good, get it nice and consistent. I like to throw just a couple blobs on the foam just to kind of get it going. And then I'll kind of just slowly just smear it around a little bit, get it worked in the pad a little bit. And then I wipe it off and it's shiny and done and it's perfect. Just kidding. Alright, so the buffer's going up this way, spinning that way. So when we're getting it going, kind of start it nice and easy just so we kind of get that, don't sling, we don't want to sling the polish everywhere. So once we get it fired up, we want to make sure we're putting the pressure and we're coming off that lip. And those high consequence areas right there, you just want to do light pressure. We want to make sure we're not forcing that on there. We don't want to, we definitely do not want to burn through, because it's not very fun to paint things multiple times, I can tell you for a fact. Get this going again, try not to sling it everywhere. So this lower lip, I want to make sure I'm coming off of it. One thing too, I want to make sure we're not putting any heat in this. So I always like to use the back of my hand or my hand just to make sure there's no excessive heat buildup, because that will ruin your paint job very quickly also. Okay, we always want to use a nice clean rag. Don't find one that's been laying on the ground full of crap. And we'll wipe the excess off and we'll see how it looks. And right away you can tell it's quite a bit shinier than the other stuff, but there's still a lot of scratches in it. So, you know, like I didn't actually get this area very well because I was being very careful not to grab that edge. So I'm going to go ahead and go over this one more time with this just to get all those areas I kind of missed a little bit. So now we got this pretty well shiny. It's got a nice sheen to it again, but it's still got a lot of scratches in it. If you look close in the light, you can just see this has got lots of scratches still. So shiny, but not there yet, especially for a black car. Black car's got to be pretty damn scratch free. So that being said, we're going to switch over to the next polishing pad. All right, next I am switching over to my fine cut pad from Harbor Freight again, and I'll be using some Meguiar's Ultra Finish 205. Same sort of process here. Get a little bit on the pad. This is a lot softer pad compared to the hard cut, so it won't be as aggressive, but we still want to pay extra attention on those edges because we don't want to burn through anything. Again, check for heat. We've got a little bit of heat in there. It's not hot, but it's warm. We want to make sure we're not overheating the paint. Then we also want to make sure we get all the excess off in all these areas, because that stuff dries on there harder than the rock. Man, that's starting to look really nice. Like that's almost good enough to take out in the sun. Really fine scratches in there now. It was definitely worth it going over that one more time. You can really start seeing the blue flake come out of that. And then we'll just kind of transfer over here to where we haven't polished yet. And you can just see how cloudy it gets. And then all the way over to what we were wet sanding. So, looking good. Can you see me? Looks like a mirror. It's beautiful. Alright, I'll switch over to the Ultra. Alright, for the final, I have the Show Car Finish pad. Super soft foam pad, and I will hit it with this dual action cleaner polish, the Meguiar's 83. That worked pretty good for the rest of the body. So I'll go ahead and hit that right here, and we will see what that looks like. Okay, so as you can see right now, we've got rid of 99% of all those scratches. There's some very, very finite scratches in there, but that's going to be good enough for now at this point, because we will probably polish this thing and wax it out once it's all put together. It's going to get dusty in here and probably get a couple little scuffs and scratches, so you can just kind of see the transformation between the different polishes. We go from the wet sanding here, completely dull, over to the cutting, over to the fine foam and polishing, and then over here we get to the Ultra and the show finish. So it is looking good, and I am happy with the way that looks. It is a mirror. Alright, so we got this bad boy all polished out now, and it's looking pretty darn good. Took me, probably 2 hours maybe to go through and do all this. Probably not quite, about an hour and a half. But well worth it to go ahead and wet sand and polish it. get rid of the orange peel as much as possible, and it just looks amazing. Nice and flat. So that's going to be a wrap for this one. I hope I gave you guys some tips. I don't know if I did or not. Like I said, I'm not the best at it, but this is what I do, and it makes satisfactory results. So thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.